IFW, the international voice of freight and logistics.
Thanks for tuning in to IFW Radio, the voice of the freight and logistics industry. My name's Kizzy Nkwacha, and today we're going to be joined by our reporter Katarina Kerr, who will be bringing you her take on this week's news headlines in the world of freight and logistics. Over to you, Kat.
Thanks very much, Kizzy, and welcome to another IFW News Roundup. One of the biggest stories of the week, I believe, is our Asia-Europe carriers looking to grab market share. Now, shipping lines on the Asia-Europe trade have failed to reduce their capacity to match demand, fueling speculation that carriers may be attempting to grab market share at the expense of rate increases. Analyst AXS Alphaliner said capacity on the Far East Europe route had increased by 20% since the beginning of the year, and the fleet size currently stands at 375,000 TEU. Although that's marginally less than the peak size of 378,000 TEU in August, it is the middle of the winter slack season. Furthermore, carriers are set to add more capacity to the trade. Alphaliner said, although volumes transported have diminished with the winter season, there is no significant capacity adjustment. So the carriers appear to be going back to pre-crisis mode to grab market share, even after freight rates have dropped precipitously since August. So that brings us on to our top 5 most read stories this week. The 5th most read story this week, with 483 views, is US shippers slam FMC report on shipping disruption. US shippers have expressed profound disappointment in a government investigation into shipping lines' poor service levels on the Trans-Pacific trades. The National Industrial Transportation League said a Federal Maritime Commission announcement seemed to suggest service disruptions, rolled cargo, cancelled contracts and uniform rate increases experienced between the second half of 2009 and early this year were a misunderstanding. It has also called for the release of the full report into the investigation. The 4th most read story this week, with 505 views, is corruption claim as Indian air cargo operations are privatised. The Indian air industry is questioning a decision by the Airports Authority of India to hand over Chennai Airport's cargo operations to private firm Badra International after the cargo hub posted strong year-on-year growth of 15% on imports and 35% on exports. The 3rd most read story this week, with 544 views, is US critical infrastructure list includes world's busiest ports. Some of China and Europe's largest container ports appear on a US list of critical infrastructure published by WikiLeaks. Major shipping arteries and Middle East energy export terminals vital to US security also feature on the State Department list. Included are a number of ports in China, Japan, Taiwan, Singapore and the European ports of Rotterdam and Hamburg. The narrowest point between Africa and Yemen, the Bab al-Mandab, which forms the entrance to the Red Sea, is described as a critical supply chain node, while other key shipping arteries listed are the Straits of Malacca, Gibraltar, Bosphorus and Hormuz, and the Panama and Suez Canals. The 2nd most read story this week, with 718 views, is container shipping lines face new rates war. A number of container shipping lines are facing another rates war unless they can maintain discipline and match supply and demand, according to some industry observers. Doug Bannister, an analyst at Box Trade Intelligence and former Maersk Line UK boss, together with Arthur Worsley, a container derivatives broker for FIS, agreed that the industry was under threat from overcapacity. Both questioned whether carriers would be able to avoid the urge to leave vessels in service, even when there was oversupply, in order to grab market share, as happened in 2009. And now that brings us to the most read story this week, and with 1,346 views, the story is about CMA CGM, Maersk Line and Unifeeder unveiling a number of surcharges related to new EU customs regulations. As a result of new EU regulations requiring cargo information 24 hours before shipment, CMA CGM and Maersk Line have introduced a customs documentation charge of $25 per bill of lading, while Unifeeder said it would add a charge of $30 per bill of lading. That that concludes IFW's news roundup for the week. If you would like more information on the stories and many others, visit our website at ifw-net.com. You can also join in the discussions on our Twitter, LinkedIn and Facebook pages. Just search IFW Freight and Logistics News on Facebook, search IFW Cargo on LinkedIn to find our group, and on Twitter we are under IFW-net.
IFW, the international voice of freight and logistics.